Welcome everybody to Ultimaster Insights. I am with Dr. Travis Corcoran. Welcome, my friend. Excited to have this conversation with you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Marcus. I'm good. I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this conversation. I've got my copy of Restore and Reason, and I love it. And we're going to talk about this. But before we do a little bit of background, Dr. Travis graduated from Palmer College of Chiropractic, and as well as owning and operating several healthcare practices in the Netherlands, he's a seasoned philosopher. Dr. Travis helps people pursue a life of well-reasoned meaning. It's a title. And you know what? As a mentor to many chiropractors, he's a true thought leader of the profession and calls the chiropractor, calls the people he coaches and mentors to develop their insight, their reason, their thinking, to impact the world in a profound and powerful way. He proudly serves on 2 international boards of directors, including the International Federation of Chiropractor and Organizations, IFCO, and advisor to 1 national board of directors in Singapore. He loves serving the profession. He just, in this book, I said before we jumped on that this is the type of book that challenges the thinker, calls them to a deeper insight and understanding of themselves, of their thinking. And I feel really, really humbled that I had an opportunity to read this and touch base with you on this book. So let me just ask, Dr. Travis, from your perspective, not mine, tell me a little bit about this book.
The book is really, it's just kind of think of it as an overview or introduction to the trivium or the first 3 liberal arts if you've never been exposed to them. People that know me or follow me have probably heard me talk about it anyway. It's all I talk about. And there's a reason for that, because it's very profound, and it's I don't know of anything more valuable. And especially as chiropractors, we should understand that everything's from above down, inside out. So what better place to start than with your mind? So that's what the book is about. It's about those 3 liberal arts and your intellect. And I talk about in the book the 5 enemies of the intellect, which I would call the murderers of intellect. And I look at them like a detective would look at any suspect in a murder, right? The intellect is the victim, and these 5 institutions are the suspects. And so I look for means, motive, and opportunity. And then once we go through that, we talk about the trivium and what it is, some examples, and then eventually get into some real life stuff, 4 areas of your life. Because all the books I've recommended people on the trivium, they just don't read it, because there's like dry school books, text books. And so that's why I wrote this, so that hopefully inspires people. And those 4 areas of life are business, health, relationships, and politics. And that's it.
I want to talk about the liberal arts for a moment, because a lot of people will either not have a reference for that. Certainly, if they have followed you, if they've listened to you speak and immerse themselves in your work, they'll know exactly what you've mentioned there. But other people will say, "What do you mean, Dr. Travis? Well, what are the liberal arts? What exactly is this, and how is it even relevant to me in my life or my practice?"
Yeah, well, first, they're relevant to you if freedom is relevant to you. And for me, as a chiropractor, like freedom for expression, nerve expression, freedom for innate intelligence, that's important to me. Intellectual freedom, political freedom, financial freedom. Freedom is an important thing to me. And in order to achieve freedom, then one should be somewhat familiar with the arts of freedom, which is what all liberal arts are. The arts of or pertaining to liber or freedom. The AL's from, that means from alles, of or pertaining to. So that's why it should be important to just about anyone. However, most people probably think, like I did a long time ago, that I have a liberal arts education. I went to a liberal arts school. I took some humanities courses, sociology, some foreign language, and that's a liberal arts education. But as you probably know, Marcus, and probably a lot of your listeners as well, over time, systems and institutions, they change their meaning. They become corrupt and they lose focus. And look at our profession, they lose their principles. So it's always up to someone to bring us back to the roots and the thing that made it all so successful. And so the liberal arts I'm talking about in this book are the classical or traditional liberal arts, of which there are 7. I only discuss the first 3 in the book because those are concerned with the quality of the mind. The last 4, the quadrivium, is concerned more with the environment that the mind finds itself in.
Hopefully that's the follow-up book then. Now, I love the title Restoring Reason. There's an implication in that, subtle, and perhaps not so subtle, that in some degree we've lost reason. And if we look at the world as it currently stands, it's almost self-evident that there is an insanity that has overtaken us. So, and you speak about in this book not only about intellectual depth and understanding and self-reflection, you allow a deep dive of that introspection to uncover your own understanding and the understandings that are taking place in the world. So what does restoring reason mean to the reader? What is the experience they are going to have, and what is the outcome of reason that once restored allows them to find that freedom in their life?
The first, like, restoring reason is not, I'll say this, if you're someone that's allowed emotion to really take over, then it's not a comfortable thing. Consider, like, in the absence of reason, all of your opinions have been given to you and you're not forming them yourself. So it'd be very similar to I can walk, but I decide to use a wheelchair. And then suddenly I stop using the wheelchair. It's going to be very painful to start using my legs again. Yeah, they're totally functional, but like, if I just don't use them, they become weak, they atrophy. And that's the same thing. We're all born with the ability to reason, even at a basic level, pattern recognition, right? Even before you get into formal logic. So what people will experience is, it depends on where you are at currently. A lot of people that follow me won't find it too difficult, but if you're really into this, I would say if you're into postmodernism, it's going to be real painful. In fact, you'll likely deny everything in there because everything is subjective to you. There is no reality. So it's also the good news. It's easy to dismiss and criticize since nothing has any meaning. Those people will find it, irrelevant. The people in the middle will find it difficult because as you begin to form your own opinions, the first thing that happens is you start to question some of the things you've already accepted based on appeal to authority, appeal to emotion, conviction bias, whatever. That's what you'll likely experience. However, that's what you should experience. Conflict clarifies. If you don't have things to discern from, you're not actually thinking. You're just following a narrative that's been presented to you. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, and I want to bring that into a real concreteness, tangibly, that people experience in their practice. And we experience this all the time when somebody comes in and they say, they give their history and their doctor has said something, whether it be about chiropractic or whether it be about their health. And if you think about sometimes what they experience is, my doctor said I probably shouldn't get adjusted in the neck because it might cause a stroke. And we know that is a completely unreasonable statement. And by challenging their thinking, we might say, well, how do you know that to be true? Or how does your doctor know that to be true? And again, instead of being caught up in the emotion, your doctor's an idiot, why would they say such a stupid thing? They don't know anything, which doesn't help, because when you attack a person that they hold in regard, you immediately diminish yourself, which again brings reason and intellect into the conversation. So we have that as practitioners. And then when we ask that question, how does your doctor know that to be true? Did they read that, research that, understand that, or are they driven by a bias that has been presented to them in their education? So you're bringing an intellectual conversation that restores reason to the reason and therefore understanding to the patient. What I love about this book is it demands that you think. You can certainly feel, but it demands that you think more than you would otherwise think. And for those that are uncomfortable with that, it's a call to arms to strengthen your intellect, to develop your reasoning and critical thinking skills, to discern the information in front of you and the information shared with others, to elevate them to a high level of consciousness and understanding. That's profound. And so I think everybody has a need to uncover this level of understanding and to express it more effectively within their life and their practice, so that they're not blown by the wind this way and that way by the emotions that may dictate their feelings on any given day. What are your thoughts in respect to those types of experiences that people have and how this thinking can transmute that?
Yeah, for those people, I imagine it's something similar to, like, one of my favorite movies is The Matrix. And there's a scene in there where Neo has been removed from the Matrix. He says to Morpheus, like, why do my eyes hurt? And he says, you've never used them before. And so when people, they start thinking for themselves, it's not pleasant, right? Because if you've never done it before, and the aquarium that we live in today, we're like fish in an aquarium, right? We've never seen the sea. We've just been swimming in this manufactured cubicle of lies and deception from mainly those 5 institutions that I criticize in the book. It's tough. And when you look at those 5 institutions, they use the same principle. Think of it like in engineering. Like you have a principle, but there are multiple applications, right? And that's kind of what we see. The principle is appeal to authority, appeal to emotion, social conformity. Those are like the 3 main things. And there's just different applications of those things. And we've seen our world, we're all like being led by the nose or by a carrot or scared of the stick or following the carrot. And it's hard to stand up for yourself when you don't have certainty. You're just like really trying to seek pleasure or avoid pain, not necessarily in that order. It's not pleasant. If my whole life I've just been fed out of the trough, and then someday I discover I have to find my own food, which is likely healthier and better for me, but I'm just not accustomed to it, that's not a pleasant experience. And I say that in the book too. This is not easy. Like I said with the wheelchair, if you want to start walking again, okay, you're going to have to build those muscles up, and there will be muscle pain. It's no different with our intellects.
I think what's so beautiful about that is when you talk about control and operating under biases and knowing that there is propaganda directing our minds to live in a certain way, that is the antithesis of chiropractic, which almost says that restoring reason and therefore having intellectual understanding of the events around us and discerning what decisions we make is the thesis of chiropractic. So this is reading for every chiropractor who wants to live the chiropractic principle. And I think that also then says, when you said you gave the Neo example, what are my eyes hurt because you haven't seen before? Reading this book, if studied, may cause your brain to hurt because perhaps you haven't reasoned before and weren't prepared for the adventure that it takes you on down that rabbit hole to self-reflection, understanding, critical thinking, and therefore seeing truly into the world. I think it's a true gift in that regard.
Yeah, it's not, and the thing is, the book is, I think it's not a chiropractic book. I think I mentioned the word chiropractic twice, and that's after page 100 or so, and it's in like maybe 1 or 2 very short paragraphs. However, the reason I mean, I absolutely love chiropractic. I serve chiropractic in every aspect of my life. And the reason I do is because chiropractic is like such a beautiful expression of the trivium and of these liberal arts. I mean, in fact, that's what we do. We liberate innate intelligence. We liberate the mental impulse. We restore neural integrity. And if we could restore reason, then we're actually restoring our intellectual integrity, our individual integrity, right? And taking charge of our lives rather than, I'm trying to stop from saying this, but I've been saying, instead of being ruled by emotion. But the more I think about it, the truth is, Marcus, I've realized we're not led by emotion. In fact, we are enslaved by emotion, because if emotions are controlling my decisions, then it's not me that's in charge. I'm not led by emotion. It's whatever institution, individual, or ideology that elicits my emotions, they're actually in charge. So people that have actually taken responsibility for their intellect and have actually used it malevolently, they have no problem taking up real estate in your mind and taking responsibility for your thoughts. That's what happens when we give it up.
Or in reason restores freedoms, and it's an important decision to make for yourself. And I wanted to jump on what you just said there. You know, this is not a chiropractic book. You've mentioned the word chiropractic twice, and yet it still, I feel, leads to chiropractic. So how is it that you write a non-chiropractic book for a non-chiropractic audience, yet, at least in my mind, and I'd love you to clarify my thinking around this and a conversation we had previously, how this leads inevitably to chiropractic?
For me, if you well, I'd have to go into a bit more detail. I'll try and put it in a nutshell. If you were to go into the next 4 liberal arts, like the quantity of environment, see the quality, the first 3, the trivium, is quality of mind. Tell me if this sounds familiar. The mind, immaterial, intangible, intelligence. Then we go into the quadrivium, all about the environment that the mind is in, right? The environment, matter, tangible things, things I can measure, like distance, time, space, quantities. The first is quality, right? So what does that sound like? We have like this immaterial and material, right? And to me, like the 8th liberal art is chiropractic. Like the final liberal art, the ultimate art of liberation, liberating the mental impulse, the thing that even connects intelligence to matter, the expression of intelligence to matter. To me, chiropractic is really the ultimate, it is the 8th liberal art, 8th wonder of the world, you might say. But so yeah, I agree with you. It does lead into chiropractic, if especially if you're a chiropractor. Of course, I'm quite biased, I admit that. Man, I love the profession so much. But when I wrote the book, I want this to impact more people than just chiropractors. There's so many chiropractic books, and I certainly haven't read them all. And the ones that are in print, I mean, yeah, the only people that do read them are chiropractors. So this was my way of also like leading people to start thinking clearly, because it's clear thinking people that value chiropractic. So many chiropractors are spending their time with the sales tactics and this and that and telling the story and all the like cheeky ads and all that stuff. What if we just gave the public and the market the tools to think for themselves? I have so much faith in humanity that I know if they can think clearly and they were to restore reason, that they would inevitably draw the same conclusions I would without me having to tell them, right? So it's more like don't give them a fish, teach them to fish. That's why I wrote this book, and that's why it wasn't a chiropractic book, because I wanted to go a bit more fundamental and reach more people.
And I want to talk to that point, because the people who do want to write books and perhaps want to write something profound and impactful that changes lives, alters people's paradigms, and maybe does take them to that deeper process. What was your specific writing process? Well, how was it that you took an intellectual, philosophical, and even theoretical framework and immersed it into a book to make it accessible so that you could change the hearts and minds of people?
I would say 2 things. The first, and you've probably heard this too, like you create like a North Star document or a direction, like this is the goal, these are the objectives, this is who I hope to reach and what I want to get across. And then you just don't deviate from that. That's, I love that. It's just the North Star. And then second is a lot of help, a lot of feedback. And I don't just mean editors and proofreaders, but like for the grammar and all that. But I mean people who read it and go, could you explain this more? I don't understand this. This isn't clear enough. That way I knew where to like add more meat to the skeleton, I suppose. And also the North Star document also helps me from, because if you let me go, I'll go off on every tangent, especially once we get into politics and healthcare and like that kind of stuff. Not so much business and relationships, but definitely politics and healthcare. So I would say have a good circle around you, people that you trust, and to give you good feedback. Make sure you're comfortable with getting feedback. Remember, it's to help, right? It's not people aren't trying to cut you down. And just keep your eye on the North Star. This is where I want to go. This is what I'm aiming for.
Speaking about feedback, what type of feedback have you had on this, and what type of impact are you seeing from your audience and readers?
Well, right now, the feedback I get from in our profession, I get a lot of really good feedback, but that's because, most of them have already been pre-framed to what I talk about, or plus my circle within this profession they're not extremists, they're pretty much centrists. This book would hopefully brings more from the materialistic, spiritualistic extremes together, I hope, because it's an equal criticism of both the spiritualist, the postmodernist, everything's subjective, nothing has true meaning. And then the appeal to authority group, show me the evidence, where's the research? Like these extreme radical ends, I think they could benefit from those. And that's why I'm trying to tighten that in a little bit. Outside the profession, same thing. But I think that's in part because of what's going on in the world today, that people just recognize how necessary this is now. And it is fair to say that there is criticism of my book too, and that's to be expected. I'm attacking 5 major institutions. So you have to consider, if you're highly credentialed by any of the one or more of those institutions, your entire livelihood is dependent on one or more of those institutions. You can imagine that you've got a lot to say about my book, and it is not positive, right? I mean, it'd be like me attacking you directly. You would refute me, understandably so. However, I hope that at some point those people realize I'm not attacking them. I'm attacking a bad system. Most of them are probably good people, just they're stuck and fully invested in a bad system and feel that they have to defend it because they're identifying with it.
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there, Travis. I don't see it as an attack. I see it as the application of critical thinking in analyzing deficiency that surfaces truths that need to be addressed to enable people to make choices and decisions to elevate their effectiveness, their efficiency, their consciousness, and their service. So if it's taken that way, yes, there are deficiencies even in individuals and in organizations, then it actually is a service as opposed to sometimes you need to deconstruct to reconstruct. And that way it offers the pursuit of critical thinking isn't destructive, it's constructive in its deconstruction. So I would like to put it like that, and having read it, I don't think it is offensive at all. I think it is conducive.
I agree with you. I agree 100%. You just have to consider that some people have a degree of conviction bias that is so deep, right? I don't want to say Stockholm syndrome, but the depth and magnitude of conviction bias is really going to depend on whether someone can receive this, what you and I would consider a fair constructive criticism, not of an individual, but just of an institution. It really depends on their how entrenched they are and how dependent they are on these institutions. It's only human nature that they would defend those things. But I would say, with all the difficulties of our times right now, that group is dwindling. The more and more people are being shooken up and woken up, and there's a lot more self-realization happening. So I'm with you. I agree with you, and I think there's more and more people every day with all the difficulties in the world. Conflict clarifies, and their minds are clearing up because there's a lot of conflict.
Exactly what this book does. Story and Reason, Dr. Travis, it is a wonderful contribution to humanity. It will serve chiropractic in their own thinking and understanding. I know that we could talk for hours on the depth of this thesis and its impact on humanity. We will make sure that people read the book and then maybe have that conversation again at a future time. I appreciate all the work you've done. Everyone, grab the book, develop your intellect, restore reason, and together we change the world. Thank you.